Hey everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven and this is the Storytime channel. Today we have some malicious compliance stories and our first story of the day is by I'm Not Sure. At 17, I got a nurse suspended. I was telling a friend this story and he told me to post it here. So in high school, I worked as a certified nursing assistant at a local nursing home. I only worked on the weekend because my parents wanted me to focus on school during the week. Anyone in the health field knows you cannot work with the elderly when you are sick because some elderly people can die from the common cold. When I was 17, I got really sick. I got sick on a Tuesday with a light cough, and by Friday, I was going into 10-minute coughing fits. The next Monday was Labor Day. My regular doctor was closed all weekend. My parents decided we couldn't wait until Tuesday and went to the ER. I had a bad case of bacterial pneumonia. For those who don't know, regular pneumonia usually results from a bad case of the flu or another illness, but a perfectly healthy person can be in Walmart, for example, and walk by another person with bacterial pneumonia who sneezes and breathes it in. It's extremely contagious. I was admitted to the hospital and hooked up to tubes. Turns out I was also dehydrated from being so sick. Around midnight, I realized I needed to call in since I won't be able to work the next 3 days. So I called the nurse's desk and told the registered nurse on duty that I have been diagnosed with pneumonia and won't be able to work this weekend and most likely the weekend after due to the possibility I will still be contagious. She told me, if you wanted a 3-day weekend, you shouldn't have volunteered to work. You can't fake a cough to get out of work in the real world, sweetheart. Then hung up. I asked my dad what I should do. He took my phone and took a picture of me in the hospital bed. Then we got a signed note from the doctor and took a picture of that. He then told me to email those to the director of nursing for the facility. I did that and also told her what the registered nurse had told me. Thing is, at this facility, any calls through the nurse's station are recorded to protect the facility from lawsuits and or protect the residents from negligent caretakers. She was on record telling me what she did. When I returned 2 weeks later, I learned she had been suspended for 8 weeks without pay for negligence. Let me ask you guys, do you think 8 weeks suspension without pay is a fitting punishment for absolutely downplaying OP's bacterial pneumonia and kind of requesting they come in? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by Pill Downton Abbey. Congratulations, you're now PCI compliant, and no, we can't recover those credit card numbers for you. We have a customer who apparently got scared into finally becoming PCI compliant. My company handles this by using a third-party gateway that tokenizes the credit card data, and we store that token, ensuring that even if a hacker got their data and decrypted it, there would be no credit card numbers or cardholder information obtained. Anyway, this customer was one of our last holdouts to ye olden days where you were able to enter credit card numbers to be seen by all. They had been refusing to update their software for years because of this. Because there was so much preparation required on their end, primarily going through the software and transcribing credit card numbers from comment and note fields into actual credit card fields to be tokenized, we gave them 90 days from the software update until we enabled PCI compliance and wiped the database of credit card numbers. Each week, we send their management a warning email reminding them that all credit card numbers will be wiped and only the ones entered into the credit card fields will be automatically tokenized, while the rest will be purged. Day 0 arrives and they tell us they're ready to flip the magic switch. We do some spot checking of customer data and see that almost no credit card numbers have been entered into the proper credit card field. I believe the actual number of properly handled credit card numbers was under 15%. We let them know what we found and provide about 100 examples for them to double check, telling them that they need to check the rest of their accounts as well. A couple hours later, we get an angry call from their general manager wanting to know why their fancy new credit card machines still haven't been enabled, so we explained the situation to her and forwarded the previous emails to her, which she had already been included in, but whatever. She tells us what a huge disappointment we are and that for what she's paying us, we need to get this done now. We have her email back that she understands our concerns and that she is authorizing us to go ahead. 5 minutes later, the irreversible deed is done. I say irreversible because this customer didn't use our backup service and had neglected to maintain their own backups despite our insistence that it be done before the update and before forcing PCI compliance. A couple weeks later, and the GM calls us wanting to figure out why their credit card deposits don't reflect the business they've been doing. She's noticed a trend, she says, that only credit cards processed since the implementation of PCI compliance measures are showing up in her batches. This is when we remind her of our previous communications and her insistence that we proceed despite our protests. She demands that we recover her data for her, and again, we have to remind her of previous communications that they are responsible for all backups. Apparently, she hadn't been reading anything at all and just thought making demands was going to get the job done properly. Thankfully, they only lost a couple weeks of transactions and learned that from that point on to ask for a credit card when the card on file is missing. This person is still the GM, but has started using our hosted software solution, which at least now guarantees proper backup. That is incredibly negligent. I don't think that person deserves to have that GM position anymore. How can you get emails every single week insisting you do this, and this, and you do none of it? And then all that stuff they warned you about happens, and you're just showing up with a shocked Pikachu face. Our next story is by theoriginalalfalfa. Want to monitor my efficiency? Here's a job-by-job update. I'll try to keep it short. So I've been in the motor trade as a tech for the best part of 2 decades. I'm good at what I do. Recently, we've had a new manager come in who wants to shake things up a bit, basically put his own stamp on the business or some crap. So our bonus structure is based on hours sold versus hours attended. I attend work 8 hours a day, so if I sell 10 hours a day, I've made 2 hours worth of bonus. Easy, right? We do this by being efficient, getting jobs done quicker than the book time that the customer is charged for. So, for example, completing a 2-hour service in 1 hour means I'm 200% efficient, and I've given myself an extra hour in the day in which to complete another job, adding to my total hours sold. You follow? New boss man comes in and suddenly we're being excessively monitored on how efficient we are, despite never having an issue in the past and finishing almost every month way above our targets. He basically just wants more from us, so it looks as though he's influenced change. This includes us changing the way we clock to our jobs, which I won't go into any depth or we'll be here forever. Long story short, we're suddenly all very stressed out and overworked. In addition to these changes, we're now doing monthly reviews, which we've taken to calling demotivational meetings, where we're basically berated for lack of performance. One point of which was the demand to justify why and where we were losing time and explain why we were not fully utilizing every minute of the day. There are a number of reasons for this missing time, such as finding vehicles, dealing with parts department after wrong parts, service advisors not correctly pricing jobs, etc. All of which takes time to sort and does add up over a month. Cue malicious compliance. I've spent the last week taking every single tiny little problem I'm having to my manager, even if it means I have to wait outside his office for 10 minutes until he's ready to see me, wasting even more time. My justification for this behavior has been, I'm just giving you a real-time update of me losing time, rather than a generalized summary at the end of the month. I've also encouraged my fellow techs to do the same. My boss is now very quickly coming to realize the difference between looking at stats and data on a screen versus the real-world day-to-day workshop. Not exactly a great story, but I can assure you it gave us techs much satisfaction watching him becoming smothered in a freak ton of stupid minor issues to deal with that us techs would normally absorb into our day-to-day duties and deal with ourselves. Well, I feel like if you're gonna come into a job all high and mighty in like a managerial or a boss type position, it can be quite humbling to really witness firsthand what all these guys are doing. You keep asking for perfection and absolute top efficiency. You have to understand that it's not always going to just be the smooth, perfectly working machine every single time. Our next story is by Mariana368. No restrictions apparently isn't specific enough? Several years ago, I was off work for a week and a half due to a concussion. I took a foul softball to the nose at a company softball game. Always wear your PPE, kids. When it was time for me to return to work, I had to bring a doctor's note saying I was fit to return to work. My doctor gave me a generic for that. They filled out and signed stating I was cleared to return to work with no restrictions. I went back to work and turned in my note at the nurse's station. About an hour later, I got a call at my desk from the nurse saying she needed a better note from the doctor. I guess the phrase "no restrictions" isn't specific enough? So I called my doctor's office and apologetically asked if they could fax another more specific note to the nurse. They agreed, although I could hear the eye rolling over the phone. A couple hours later, I got an email from the nurse. My doctor did send a more specific note. It read, "Cleared to return to regular duties. That means Mariana 368 is cleared to do the things required for her job prior to injury. I still do not recommend running with scissors." The nurse thought it was hilarious, and thankfully that appeared to cover whatever she was looking for. I think she missed the sarcastic undertones. I can tell you now that any good doctor is frustrated that you have to waste their time with useless nonsense like that. No restrictions should be clear enough. It means you can do anything. You don't have any restrictions. You're cleared. Our next story is by Baker Andrew 1719. My stripper name is Strawberry. Before you start, no, I am not a stripper. Read the whole thing to understand the joke. A few years ago, in my senior year of high school, I was in an economics class. My teacher, who we'll call Mr. A, told us a story about how when he had been in college, a bakery nearby had donuts that they'd leave out with the garbage, so college students would put the trash in the bin and take the donuts. He told us about how they'd freeze the donuts and put them in the toaster oven in order to get them warm, and how they'd had a chart of times and temperature so each donut would be almost as good as bakery fresh. Well, I decided to make donuts and bring them in the class the next day. I spent all night making vanilla, chocolate, and strawberry donuts and frosting them all nice and pretty. I stored them in Mr. A's room until his class so I could pass them out. When the time came, everyone got a donut. Everyone loved them. I was so excited because I love baking, and if my goods make others happy, I bask in that little glow for weeks. However, after the first round, students asked for more. I had a ton left over. I made far too many. I said, the first one is free, the second one will cost $1. When I tell y'all it rained, it poured. These were students, they all had dollar bills. That was my second to last class. After I was done for the day, there was one class left, so of course I went class to class, and if they looked like they weren't busy, I walked up to the teacher to ask if I could sell donuts. This worked extremely well until I got to my art teacher, who I'll call Mr. B. Mr. B told me to go to the principal's office because he was worried that I wasn't allowed to be doing what I was doing. I spoke to the principal, Mr. C, and after 10 minutes of random conversation that didn't have anything to do with the topic, he told me, "You cannot sell home-baked goods on school property." Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Malicious compliance activated. You see, if you stress the sentence differently, you'll get a new meaning. Can't sell home-baked goods? Sure, but I can sell other stuff. I had read about this kid who sold paninis at his own school. Panini Dan, I think? Anyway, it gave me an idea for a plan which I formed in the 6 seconds it took to stand and walk out of the room. I walked to the janitor's room and asked if I could have the smallest roll of those sad brown paper towels and went to work. I ripped apart several nice-sized towels and started saying, "I'm selling paper towels for $1. Each purchase gets you a free donut." Easy enough, people ate them up. Important, the most popular of the 3 flavors had been strawberry. So at the end, I picked up my little brother and my friend from their classes, and we started walking out to my truck. I pulled the stack of ones from my pocket and loudly proclaimed, "I feel like a stripper. My stripper name is Strawberry," as my psychology teacher rounded the corner. He gave me a look like a disappointed parent. Still though, I got like $50 to $60 that day. I even started selling other donuts and brownie balls that I made. Don't hate the player, hate the game. If there's rules, there's always loopholes to get around them, right? No, I'm just selling pencils, I'm just selling paper, I'm just selling whatever. There's no home-baked goods here, but hey, if you buy one, you get a free donut. And our final story of the day is by xbula. Can't ride my scooter? Okay, I won't. So 9-year-old me had recently been gifted a scooter, and of course, I rode it to school every day. Usually, I would ride through the school with no problems whatsoever, drop my scooter off in the bike shed, and that was that. Until a new teacher came to school. We'll call her Mrs. Olivia. Now, I swear that this woman loved to make kids feel like crap and berated us every time we did something she didn't agree with. Somebody checked the time on their phone. Playing games on phones was not allowed, but calling your parents or checking the time was. And she started to scream at them and made them stay 1 hour after school on Friday for a detention. Anyways, let's get to the story. As usual, I was riding my scooter to school when I noticed that Mrs. Olivia was on duty. Big deal. I went through the gate and started to ride towards the bike shed when I was stopped by her shrieking. She ran up to me yelling, "Get off your scooter, you'll run into someone and take their eye out," and proceeded to threaten me with detention after school while I stared at the ground trying not to cry. The last thing she said was, "Never ride your scooter in school again." After I finally got away from her, I had an idea. She said, "Your scooter, not a scooter." One of my friends had a scooter, so together we came up with a plan. The next morning, we rode scooters into school together, and we were pulled aside by Miss Olivia, who started to scream at us, "I told you to never ride your scooters into school again." We stared up at her as innocently as we could and pointed to the name tags on our scooters, which we had swapped earlier. Her reaction was the best. She started to turn beetroot purple as we laughed and scooted off. She never bothered us again. So there's my small story of malicious compliance. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised that worked. Somebody as crabby as Mrs. Olivia sounds, I wouldn't think that swapping the name tags on a technicality would be enough to make them just never bother you again, but it actually worked out. Good for OP and their friend. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So which of these stories was your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing and turn notifications on if you haven't so you'll never miss an upcoming video. Any little thing that you do helps the channel grow so much more. Whether it's commenting, subscribing, or just watching the video, thank you all so very much for supporting me right here on the Storytime channel. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all next time, right here.